Hello, everyone. I'm Becky Ferrell, Research Lead and Programming Consultant for Dance Data Project. Welcome to a special edition of Raising the Barre. Today, I'm so delighted to be joined with Helen Pickett, choreographer extraordinaire, who has created over 60 ballets in the US, the UK, and Europe, and the brilliant Kristopher McDowell, founding partner of Rhizome Consulting and founder of KMP Artists. Hi, Helen. Hi, Kristopher.
Hi.
Hello.
So,
Hello.
so excited to have you both with me today. So let's get right to it. Since our conversation is focused on the choreographer and manager relationship, can you first give our audience a quick background on how your partnership began?
Well, shall I take the lead, Kristopher, or you?
I will probably always let the lady start. Yes, please do.
All right. So it was 2019. So little did we know, but just a breath away from the thing that shall not be named. And I had a premiere at Charlotte Ballet when Hope Muir was the director, and Kristopher was down there, correct me if I'm wrong, Kristopher, as the touring agent for Charlotte Ballet.
That's right.
And I had been choreographing about 13 or 14 years at that point. I'd learned, I'm a seeker, I'm a learner. If ever there's, I educate myself. So all of this time, I had taken the initiative because I wanted to learn about contracts, to read about them, to talk to fellow choreographers. So I really did my research, and I felt like I had come to not the end of the road, but a kind of place where I'm sure you know what I mean, where there are points in a life when you feel like you need fresh air, when you need more brain activity, so I thought this is the time I really I want to partner with someone. And because collaboration has always been a huge part of my life, and sharing with people in like and what I mean by that is really collaborating, really talking through ideas with someone, really partnering with someone who's excited about their work. And so I was watching Kristopher and talking with Hope about him, and I thought, oh, this guy loves his work. And I have to say, and this is a really big note for all people that are looking for something or want to do something, looking to partner with someone or whatever. I've always taken initiative throughout my life. Somewhere I learned very young, it's yes or no. I think it was through really a lot of the improv that I did with Bill that, it's seriously about making decisions and choices. And when you get comfortable living in that space, yes or no can shift like that, right? So I thought, I'm going to go talk to him. And I think also, Kristopher, correct me, but I think I was rather bold and said, I'm looking for a manager.
Yeah.
Or I said agent, and immediately he said, we don't use that word. I was like, oh, first thing I've learned.
So, a learning moment.
What?
A learning moment right from the start.
Right there. So I'll let Kristopher take the rest of it, but
It was I think it was a bit of a match made in heaven. It was to go and see the company who had some new dancers, and I think Hope Muir was very excited, who was the artistic director at the time, for Helen to work with the company and some of these new dancers. And so it was a great opportunity for me to really experience the company in that way. And so it was the work that really astounded me, and I just was interested to talk and know who she was and what did she think about ballet, and what are we going to do about new audiences? How are we going to make things fresh? How are we going to get away from the typical storybook ballet that we know? And I was really inspired by the work. And if you know me at all, I like super direct. Even if it comes across pointy or harsh. And the fact that she just came right out with it at the beginning of the conversation was like, okay, this is absolutely going to be a blast regardless of what happens.
Yeah.
So it was just simply that. And we just sort of hung out and talked about what she needed. And then I, in turn, was very honest about what I thought we could do.
That's awesome. That's great. I love that story.
It was a great moment.
Yeah.
It it was really that moment. Also, it's not just yes or no, Kristopher. I think you feel the same way. It's also, I always talk about antennas. Like if you have your antenna up at all times, and I don't mean that you're on high alert, it's just that you're open to your world. You can sense when, it's not like I barreled into him and like, like I said, I also am an observer because I'm a choreographer. I take in first. Maybe at this age, I don't think I was always that way, but I take in and I feel first. And you can also feel when the energy can present itself, and I think that's the, Kristopher, wouldn't you say that's the crux of, there's a question, when do you know it's the right time? It's like, well, as I said before, if you as a person feel like you want to grow in some way, well, it's like waiting for inspiration. You can't wait for inspiration. You can't wait for the perfect person to come along, because perfect means dead in my book. There is no perfect, and so, and I'm not looking for perfect. I am looking, to looking, feeling, sensing what is happening in the moment. And our moment was good at that moment.
Yes. Yes.
And then, Kristopher, what about you? I mean, how, so Helen, I love the idea of like having your antenna up, right? And really being kinesthetically aware, also at the same time of being intellectually aware of what you need and when you need it. So Kristopher, what is it like for you on this manager perspective? Like, how do you engage with artists, right? Is it like how it was with Helen? Do you see a performance? Have you had people maybe approach you via email? How do you start that conversation about collaboration and representation?
So, of course, people will inquire constantly, and I love that. Unfortunately, I don't always have the time to reply to all of that because I'm very busy trying to do the things that I need to be doing for the partners that I work with. For me, I'm thinking macro. Both of you know me really well. I'm thinking about the industry. I'm thinking about the field. I'm thinking specifically about the art form. So my antenna is up to that change. What is the change? What can the change be? And who is there to usher in that change? And I saw a major trailblazer in the work. And then I met her. And it was like, oh, okay, here we go. But it helps to see the work first. And I really wish that we could consider that as creatives, that we can really think about showing what we've got, then following that up. Because sometimes people are asking for representation simply because they think it's going to find more work. And it will, but it's meant to make you more money and delivered in a way that you're paid at a level that is respectable and to the credit that one is due at some point. And so that was what really inspired me. And I think that if we could be invited to see work more, there would be more interest fast.
That's so true. It's like, how can you represent I remember early on, Kristopher had asked me for a bunch of videos. Like, can you send me as many videos as possible? I need to not only, I'm sure it was to learn more about me, but it was also to see what companies might be the right fit. Exactly. So that there's that proactiveness, collaboration question. So you said something. You should say the question, because it said really well. Go ahead, because I want to comment on it actually, because it's interesting.
Well, I think that, we've heard the word proactive and we heard collaboration throughout this conversation already, like just 10 minutes in, and we're hearing these words. What do they mean?
Well, the thing is that you actually alluded to the fact that these are buzzwords now.
Yeah. Yep.
I wanted to talk about that. They've never been buzzwords for me. They've been a part of my entire life.
Mm.
And I mean, from home life to proactiveness. I watched my parents be proactive in their entire lives to build their lives. You know, my mom going back to school at 36, getting accepted to UCSF to become not just a dentist, but a gum surgeon. She graduated at 42 and then opened. So I know this proactiveness very well from my upbringing. And then at 19, I'm thrown into the mosh pit, and that is an affectionate term for me, the mosh pit of collaboration with Bill Forsyth. So these are not new concepts for me. They are vitally important concepts to the breadth of a human being.
Yeah.
And they are of vital importance to an artist.
Yeah.
Because no one can make your career but you. And I remember back in the days, because, you know, I am like over 25. So I remember back in the days when I would send DVDs out and hundreds, you know, go into the post office. And it sounds like I'm bragging. I'm not. What I'm saying is, if you're involved in your life, her life will be involved with you. You know, it's I think that's a new t-shirt.
Swag.
You're right. We'll be proactive and write it down, and then
and I think it's an incredibly strong current of creative energy, being proactive and having deeply understanding what collaboration means, because it is so fruitful and it's actually joyous. And you know, if you just look at filmmaking, there's a director, but there's an editor, there's a cinematographer, there's 14 million producers. And then you look at the whole thing. And if you look at how a full length is made, you know, I work with a team, because one person, you know, anyhow.
Yeah. Kristopher, what is it like for you? What do those words kind of mean for you? Proactiveness, collaboration, how do they play into your part, your role in the ecosystem here?
So I mean, proactive, it's interesting, Helen, how aligned we are in this way. These words are also not buzzwords for me. This is a drive. It is just merely what I am inspired to do. It is about a fire that exists. And when the work is that good and I see the trajectory of what that change might be, there is no other way than to be proactive about everything in that manner. Collaboration, having been an only child until I was 18 years old, was a bit slower for me. Although I was working in musical theater a lot when I was young. So there was certainly a tremendous element of it, but certainly not to the extent of a full-length ballet or film, as we've just had an example. But collaborating has been just such an incredible joy with Helen, and I feel a real partnership. And that's what I sat down with her and explained is, I don't want to just do a contract for you. I don't want to just sell a product. I'm not an agent. I can agent, but I want to strategize. I want to be a partner. And so we come up with a term, creative partnership. Now, obviously that's not a legal partnership, but it is a legally binding contract where we're saying we're coming at this as a unit. And so that's sort of deepening into the business practice of collaboration.
And speaking about contracts, creative partnerships, I know, Kristopher, you've been a part of many national conversations discussing equitable contracting in dance. How has that process been, and how does that really intersect with your role as a manager?
Well, I think it keeps me in check, first of all. What am I really looking for when I'm looking at work? What am I really trying to achieve with the creative partners that we are being so proactive with and for? So it's really that yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
The equitable, and then I use the word ethical practices is what I've struggled with a bit. And there are two different sort of paths that were sort of spearheaded by two different wonderful service organizations. But I find it interesting that the word ethical is left out of one of those, because I do think we need to reevaluate how we are treating one another on paper, as well as in person, because we see a lot of change happening in person at the moment at face value, but then when the contract comes through, we go, okay, wait a minute, there is no change at all. And so how do we work toward that? And coming up against obstacles like, well, this is the way it's always been done, is my favorite. Because it's like, well, wait a minute, what have we been talking about for 3 years? Or
Right.
longer?
Yeah.
Right. Well, Helen, I'll swing it to you then, right? Because you have and continue to have a very long, successful career choreographing for the best ballets companies in the world. So I think you've seen a lot of contracts, yes, in your day. So how have they changed over the years? How have they evolved? Like, what is the contracting process like now, especially with Kristopher as your creative partner and manager?
Yeah, I think that is, one of the biggest factors here. I'm going to chime in with Kristopher in saying that I'm not so sure how much things have changed on paper over the years, how they've changed for me. And then I'll speak about the huge change that happened when we started partnering, Kristopher and I, is that I became far more astute with reading all of the language in a contract. And then at a certain point, I realized I have a little bit of power in this. And I started saying, well, simple thing, like, it's really important that I have a gym, because I have to work in the morning, especially if I'm making a new work. I need to work a couple of hours in the morning on the work, this or research or whatever, or listening to music. I work a couple to a few hours at night. I need to be able to get in the gym at any point, and especially for warm up. So I started putting that into my contract, and it was accepted. I started putting into my contract, I need to be in an apartment, not a hotel, because I need to cook for myself, because it's just far healthier. So I learned about contracts by reading many contracts. And then, so again, I hope this message is clear, because I also try to pass that forward, that, you are going to be your greatest asset. And that includes I equate it to partnering in dance. Kristopher and I have a partnership. Partnering is listening. It is generosity. It's graciousness. It's learning how to negotiate with each other. There's another word I'm leaving out here that I can't pull up right now, but it's leaving room for possibility and spontaneity. But listening is the big one. So when Kristopher and I partnered and we started combing over contracts, he started showing me all the places where I had, what did he just say? This is the way it's always been done. Well, I took that on myself. And that's a big thing to remember. A friend of mine once said, you might have to cut this out. A friend of mine once said, if you agree to being paid $5, you will be paid $5. And Kristopher also, we worked a lot, and he said, well, here let's talk about this part of the contract. And, we're talking about contracting, and that's the question. But I believe it's really important to say that it's far more than contracting. It's learning a certain value.
Yes.
It's valuing yourself. It's valuing your partnerships. It's valuing your collaborations. And like Kristopher said, it's learning how to find the value on paper or in emails. wherever it is, if Kristopher is really, and you know my work too, and Kristopher was a big part of this during the pandemic with the Female Choreographers Roundtable, the Creative Vitality. This was all about community.
Absolutely.
That's collaboration and being proactive. So I learned a lot with Kristopher. I learned a lot more with contracting. I can't really say how it's changed over the years. I think I've changed over the years.
Yeah.
And
then thinking about qualities, right? Like you and Kristopher had this lovely, I'm going to call it a pas de deux, right? Like you have this lovely pas de deux, right?
Yes.
So what qualities were you both looking for, right? For Kristopher in a choreographer and then Helen in a manager. Like how did that relationship kind of merge together? I feel like I'm asking like dating app bios, like what were you looking for? But there has to be compatibility, right? There has to be mutual respect and professional relationships as well. So what were you really looking for in this partnership?
I was seeking someone who was willing to get really direct in a vulnerable way. And she entered my life that way. So it was an automatic. I need a regular conversation. This is what I need as a partner. I need to be engaged. We've not spoken. We spoke yesterday, Helen, but we've not, other than a lot of WhatsApp messages while she was setting work on West Australian Ballet, we really hadn't spoken in maybe almost 2 months.
Yeah.
And that was like having withdrawals. Because it's the way that I continue to grow with my partner. And so if I lose that, and I thought, okay, we're going to be fine. We're always on WhatsApp. But it really is that connection and the listening that can happen in that conversation and the subtext that I take away from that as opposed to assuming it in a text. I need someone who will commit to a regular phone call, Zoom, whatever we need to do based on how we feel that day. But I have found those that I'm communicating with on a weekly basis, things are clear. We are stronger and aligned in the way we are behaving externally. And that is very much what we have, the two things that I need to be successful for someone and for myself.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead. Okay.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more with Kristopher. Common goals. And I'm going to say this too in a different way. He just said it, but common ambitions. It's like common goals, common ambitions, kindness. I'm a big kindness person because kindness is respect and generosity and graciousness. And it's the allowance for possibility. It's the allowance for the room to grow. And I really believe that we're both there. I mean, Kristopher and I have schemed I'm saying that in the best way, about so many things. And that's important because one thing I love more and more about life is you really never know what's around the corner. You can have your goals, you can work. I believe that does make your future. Your present, what you're doing now is your future. I believe that completely. But we're both people that know about the possibilities of what we don't know. And when we keep dreaming together, like with all these different striations of creative activity, you never know. You never know when one of those things or one person says, hey, remember when you were talking about, I really like this thing. Can we do it now? We're like, Kristopher, I'll be like, of course we can. Because we talked about it even 3-4 years ago. So like time, and I think this is important for younger artists, time can be tricky. Time and timelines and you having goals in 1.5 years, I'm going to have this manager. And it can be very tricky. Because dancers, we like to be in control. That control can be a trap if it is not a control that has a lot of room for the possibility of the unknown. And control is overrated.
Man.
Yeah.
So what are recommendations then? I mean, I think this is great. I think you're already getting into this a little bit, Helen. I would love to hear from both of you. Like, what are your recommendations for choreographers who think they might be ready for a manager? What does that look like? I mean, I know how you talked a little bit about what that timing looked like for you, but how can a dance artist kind of navigate when it might be the right time to engage with the manager? And then Kristopher, I'd love to hear from you as well.
Yeah. Go ahead, Kristopher.
You have to have a career.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have a network. You have to know who you are in that career and in that network. Because if you're still figuring that out, it's a different job. You need an advisor. You need a mentor. And I'm speaking about creatives versus a dance company, for example.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a different strategy and approach. But in this case, it really is that for me.
Yeah.
Simply.
Yeah. No, it's great.
I say do your research. You know, I mean, we liked each other. I approached Kristopher, but we didn't sign on the line immediately. Right, Kristopher?
Nope.
No. And that's a good thing. It's, you know, the more you... Sorry, go ahead.
I just want to jump in on that because I also believe that we need to be flexible as representatives in the way that we're contracting with a partner. And that takes time. Like, are we comfortable to move forward? And then is this the right document? Are we using the right words? It's going back to another topic but I just felt like it's worth underscoring that right now, because I believe that each person and company I work with, the contract is a little bit different, and that's based on their expectations, which is key for the way that my team and myself can be successful. Sorry, Helen, but
no, yeah, absolutely. I think know what you want, respect, learning, and this is also for the ballet studio. I mean, you know, choreography, a new choreography is about, a lot of it's about negotiating your body around the steps. But I do believe that, you know, respect, negotiation, listening, and honed communication will take you very far. And that speaks to what Kristopher said about, you know, having a career. Like, you know what you want. You have a certain idea of who you are. You know what you want to say, even though there's always room for growth.
Right.
And you're open and ready to learn, no matter what age.
These are beautiful recommendations. These are great. Okay.
I'd also just say as well, if you haven't come to a certain place in your career, how do you know how you're going to raise the bar, right? You have to be able to visualize in order to be able to manifest your value. Or being compensated for what you believe that value is.
Yeah. And I just want to do one more time my amazing water bottle.
Woohoo!
Which is so handy, and I take it everywhere. Thank you so much, Liza.
She loves it. I love it. I love my water bottle also. So one question. Yeah, at the end. What's your favorite thing about working together? What do you love most about your partnership, your pas de deux?
Pas de deux. Kristopher, I'll let you take the lead.
I have to say, and I already admitted that I had withdrawals after almost 2 months of no speaking. I've learned that I have to schedule about 30 minutes after a call with Helen. I can't jump into something else because I'm so inspired. Every conversation, we've had some hard conversations. I'm inspired. I'm joyful. And I really take that moment to let that energy motivate what my next steps are. And I just, I have to say, it's a big celebration for me. And I believe in what she does. I believe in the work. I believe in where it's taking the field, the art form. And I'm honored to be a part of that. And to really sit with that energy, I think, motivates what we can achieve together.
That's beautiful.
So beautifully said, Kristopher, and thank you from the bottom of my heart. My favorite thing, whenever I'm asked that question, and notice I, gave the ball to Kristopher first, I don't believe in favorite things. I believe in a wholesome approach to how things work and how we learn actually to move through love together, because we both love what we're doing. So if there's a favorite thing, it's the passion that Kristopher has, not only for our relationship. I watch him in how he navigates, first of all, during the pandemic, a brand new, rhizome.
Mm-hmm.
And he is, there's, he's a connector.
Yes.
And he enjoys the connecting. And he is a gatherer, and he enjoys that energy. So all these things I'm talking about go under the favorite things umbrella, because generosity is so beautiful.
Mm.
And it is a beautiful, courageous aspect.
Mm.
And I do find Kristopher is both of those things. And courage is big in my book,
Mm-hmm.
as far as an attribute in a human being and an artist and in a relationship, which is what this little conversation is about. It's about forging when is the right time, but it's really, I think you've heard it loud and clear, it's forging humanity together through art.
Mm. Beautifully said. Helen, Kristopher, always a complete delight to talk with both of you. Thank you so much for sharing your insights, advice, and discussing your incredible partnership with us. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you.